Once again, thank you so much for your time that you're going to spend with us tonight. First question, I want to get into the war in Ukraine. Now, under your administration, there was world peace. We didn't have all this chaos in the world. Now it seems like it's escalating even to Crimea is even in the question. You've said before on social media and at speeches that you have a solution, and you said, hey, this can be negotiated. How do we do that?
Well, first of all, it should have never started. It would have never started had I been president. There was no chance of this war starting. And frankly, I don't think Putin wanted to do it. I think he was sort of forced in by the statements being made by Biden. And it's something so sad to see, because no matter what happens now, it can never be like it could have been, with nobody dead and with no cities demolished. Because you look at some of these cities, they're absolutely in ashes. This one city, they were flying over it. There was not one building standing. So it should have never, ever happened, but it did happen. With that being said, it can be negotiated, I think, within 24 hours. It really has to be done from the office of the president, and you have to get them both in a room. And there are things you can say to each one of them, which I won't reveal now, which will guarantee that this war will end immediately. And they have to do it, because what's happening is a horror. It's a horror. And far more people are being killed than what they're talking about. You know, they're talking about numbers that are nothing by comparison to what the real numbers are. When they knock down those big apartment houses, and when they knock out cities and they say 2 people died or 3 people were hurt, that's not right. So I think the numbers are far greater. That'll be revealed at a later date. But we have to do something about it. That war has to stop, and it has to stop now. And it's easy to do.
We talk to a lot of Americans, obviously, and they are concerned about we just keep sending money. It's a blank check, that there's no audit, there's no checks and balances. Obviously, you would be for auditing Ukraine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're sending probably at least 10 times what Europe has sent. I believe we're really at $107 billion, maybe more than that. And Europe is at a tiny fraction of that number. And obviously, Europe's affected much more than we are. They're right there. They're closer. You look at Germany, it's always been very hard to get them involved, and others have been very, very difficult to get them involved. And the numbers are not fair. It's just not fair to the United States. And I feel horribly for the people of Ukraine. I feel horribly for the people of Russia. I mean, everybody's suffering, and it's got to get solved. But when you look at the United States, with maybe 10 times the amount, it's a number that's astronomical, the difference. It's very much like NATO. When I got involved with NATO, most of the countries weren't paying, or they were not paying their fair share. There were only 7 countries that were paying their fair share. And I said, that's not going to be. And within a short period of time, we had hundreds of billions of dollars being sent in. And nobody else was able to do it. Not Bush, not Obama, nobody. And I got it done. I had one meeting, and then the second meeting I went. I had to get a little, I had to gain a little bit of knowledge, but I did notice, I said, why aren't these people paid up? I used the word delinquent. They were delinquent. And when I went in the second time, I said, look, we have a problem. Nobody's paying. You're not paying your fair share. The United States was paying for everybody, in a sense. I mean, I believe the United States was paying close to 100% of NATO. So ridiculous. And it really is a protection of Europe. And so I would say that, we got to be smarter. And the money they have is money that I got. The reason they have money right now, I believe we got $440 billion paid into NATO in a fairly short period of time. They asked the question, well, does that mean that if we're not paid, the United States will not defend us against Russia if something should happen? I said, you mean you're not paid up? Yes, sir. They said, that's what it means. We will not defend you. And money poured in like nobody's ever seen. And the Secretary General, the gentleman that runs it, Stoltenberg, who's a good man, he said, I think he's my biggest fan. Now, he may not be anymore because, politically it may not be correct for him to say, oh, Trump was great. What he said was, there's never been anything like it. I've never seen anything like it, because he's been there a long time and other people before him. And you take a look and you ask him, and you should ask him, because if his answer is the same, he said, I never saw anything like it. It was amazing. So they have the money to do what they're doing now because of what I did with the countries that were not paid.
All right, let's shift our attention over to the southern border. I think more Americans are more concerned about what's going on our southern border. Once again, under your administration, we had low border crossings, really relatively no drugs coming across the border. Now, over 300 people a day die of some kind of fentanyl poisoning. What's your plans on the border, obviously, to restore the wall? But many are asking for some type of war on the drug cartels, and if that was possible, but what's your thoughts on that?
So we had the safest border in the history of our country, or at least recorded history. I guess maybe 1,000 years ago was even better, right? But we had the safest in the history of our country. I built hundreds of miles of wall. I got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers free by using our economic power. And I had a great relationship with the president of Mexico. But using our economic power, we were able to get 28,000 soldiers for nothing. And we created Stay in Mexico. We also created a system that nobody thought possible. If you're sick, you can't come into our country. And nobody even knew about that but me. And we had the safest border in history. We had the lowest drug numbers, I think, in 37 years. And they were going down to very little. And I even worked with China. I spoke to President Xi, and I said, you have to do something about the fentanyl that you're making and sending through Mexico. And he was doing that, and he was starting to do it. And I said, you have to criminalize it, meaning death penalty for those people that make it. And he was going to criminalize it, and he had started, and then we had a rigged election. And the other people took over, and it's the worst border we've ever had. I believe it's the worst border in the history of the world for any country, because there's no country, even a third world country, that would allow people to pour in like they're pouring in now. And I believe the real number could be 15 million people, not 3 or 4 million. I believe it's 15 million. And they're emptying their prisons, and they're putting in people in their jails and prisons. They're putting them into our country. And they're putting their mental patients and from their mental hospitals and those kind of places, they're dumping them into our country. They're saving a fortune. By the way, I'd be doing exactly what they're doing. They're saving a fortune. They're taking their mental patients out, they're taping their prisoners out, and they're putting them into the United States. They're putting people that aren't very good workers into the United States, people that haven't been productive. We're taking everybody. It's killing our country.
All right, we come back. We're going to ask the president about the media that has never been fair to him. Stick around. We'll get back to the interview here in just a second, but we've been talking about our friends over at the Birch Gold Group for quite some time now with this Biden inflation and everything. The cost of living is skyrocketing. Your investments have tanked. And of course, the markets are very volatile. You can solve all of that by diversifying your portfolio with gold, silver, and other precious metals. Our partners for tonight's broadcast is the Birch Gold Group, and they want to help you transition from a traditional IRA into a gold-backed IRA. So you can do just that. Just simply text the words Trump to 989898, and they will send you a free information kit. It's easy. There's no obligation. And you know what? You got to secure your financial freedom in case of market disasters. Gold has historically been on point. So once again, text the words Trump to 989898. That's the Birch Gold Group. Now back to our exclusive sit-down with President Trump. Okay, Mr. President, back in 2015, our CEO, Joe Seals, formed Right Side Broadcasting to do nothing but become a platform for you, your rallies. We showed the crowds, we turned the cameras, we did from start to finish. But we only wish everyone was like us. And we think that really the media has not covered you remotely and fairly. They've covered up stories. They didn't cover certain stories. What do you think the media is going to be like in 2024? Have they changed at all in the way they cover you?
Well, not only the media, the FBI goes in and tells Twitter, don't cover, and it's misinformation. The laptop was misinformation or disinformation. They use both words, which are pretty much the same when you get right down to it. But what's happened is not even thinkable in our country. The media is fake, it's corrupt, it's bad, not all of it, but a lot of it, most of it. It's very bad and very dangerous, and it's hard to believe when you think they don't want to have borders, they don't want to have good education, they don't want to have tax cuts. I gave the largest tax cuts in history, I gave the largest regulation cuts in history. They don't want that. They don't cover things like the disaster of Afghanistan, that horrible, horrible period of time, which is the most embarrassing time ever. You don't see anything about that. That was just a short story. That was the worst. I believe it was the most embarrassing time in the history of our country. No, the media is very corrupt, so you have to fight through it. The advantage you have now is that, because I used to get a lot of press for 2016, but they had no idea. You know, we sort of snuck up on them. Would you
did.
We snuck in there, and they had no idea. They said, we'll never let it happen again. I mean, they were on record as saying, we'll never let that happen again. Right after the election, they couldn't believe it. But I got tremendous coverage. And then for 2020, they were nasty no matter what you did. It didn't matter how big a success you had, they were nasty. And that continues to this day. And they won't cover positive things. And if something's negative, they'll make it extremely negative. They lie, and they put it out. But I think we're getting the word. I mean, we do your shows, and we do a lot of other shows. And
Truth Social's been great.
Truth Social has been amazing. I mean, it's been one of the great, I think, things on that whole world of I call it the world of sort of semi-make-believe, because who would think that there's value and, you know, the value that's been created, but it's been fake media. Truth Social's been real media. It's been real. And I get my word out very well through Truth. And as you know, Twitter just took me back, and Facebook just took me back, and Instagram, and they want me. But, you know, it's not exciting like it used to be, because there's no dialogue, there's no people fighting a little bit, mentally fighting. And it's really, I don't think they're the same. They're not the same like they used to be. I think I really get it out to Truth. It goes all over the place. You know, I put out a statement, and you get it. Everybody gets it. They get it. So it's probably the best we've had it in years. You know, when I was on Twitter, I could say something that was so perfect, or Facebook. All of a sudden, it's red flagged.
Yeah.
And, you know, you talk about the Constitution, like NARA, where they have the Constitution. Think of that, NARA, the archives, where they have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights red flagged because they're dangerous documents. So I think Truth has been really a very big development, and it's doing tremendously well. Millions of people, and you're not going to be red flagged.
Yeah, we love it. We love it.
I know you do.
All right, let's turn our attention to law and order. I mean, there's so much crime, not only in the big cities of America, but it is pushing out into the suburbs. And I've always said, no matter what rights you have, if you don't have the right and you're not comfortable and you don't feel safe, then nothing really else matters. What would be your plan to attack the crime that is out of control in really every American city?
So one thing you have to do is you have to attack drugs. You know, if you look at it, so much of the crime is caused by drugs. You look at some of these people going in and they rob stores with guns, and they don't even know where they are. Drugs are a big problem. And we were getting that down to a level that we haven't seen in decades. The other thing is you have to be tough. If somebody's robbing a store, you have to do what's necessary. When you see thugs coming out by the hundreds out of department stores where they're just breaking in and the police are standing there not doing anything, they want to do something, but they're not allowed to. They don't want to lose their job, lose their pension, lose their house and their family, because they take very strong measures against people that are doing their job. And so you have to give police back their authority. Now, you had a case in Memphis which was so terrible, but that has to do with 5 or 6 people that just went crazy. I mean, whether you had regulations or not, I don't think it would have mattered. They went crazy for whatever reason. They just went absolutely bonkers. But you have to give the police back their authority. There are very few cases like Memphis, relatively speaking. You know, you never hear about all of the great things that happened, the good things, the law and order, the prevention of crime. But the police have to be given back authority to stop the crime. We are in a crime wave in this country, the likes of which we've never seen before. And a lot of it has to do with Democrats running the cities. New York is a disaster. It's a disaster. Chicago is a disaster. Atlanta has got one of the highest murder rates, I think per capita, the highest. And all they do is come after other people for other things. It's really an unfair situation and a dangerous situation. And you'd almost say, how does a country survive? You know, you talk about all these regimes and everything where they don't have crime. They're rough and they're tough and they're not good and it's a bad system. But they show these clips of what's going on in Chicago and what's going on in New York. No cash bail, no cash bail. Who would think of it? Murderers have no cash bail. But they show these clips all over. And other countries don't view our country the same way anymore. So you have to get tough. And what I would do, and I did it to a certain extent, but you're supposed to let the governor or the mayor take care of their problems. But in Minneapolis, as an example, I sent in the National Guard. The governor didn't approve it. I sent it in. You have to do it. They're going to rip down the whole city. That city was going to be gone. And I saw CNN standing up, and the guy's talking about, well, this is a friendly protest. And behind him, the entire city was on fire. I said, these people are crazy. So it's Democrat-run cities. You don't really have that in the Republican-run cities. It's incredible to watch. So you need law and order.
Yeah, we all need it. Okay, last weekend you were in Columbia, South Carolina, and after your great leadership segment where you rolled out your team there, you made a stop at a local ice cream business there, and you had a moment where an employee took time and asked if they could pray for you, and she said a small prayer over you and your campaign. How does that make you feel that America is literally praying for your safety and they're praying for this country and that you get back in the White House?
What a great woman. She said, may I pray for you? And I sort of said, what? We're standing in the middle of this place. And it was a nice place with a wonderful owner and wife, and very proud of it, and crowded. And there was a lot of love. There was all love. I don't know if you were there.
It was great.
It was all love. There wasn't somebody in the back of the room doing bad things. It was just pure love for the country and for the former president. It was incredible, actually, to see. But the one woman wanted to pray, and she did. And I guess that got a lot of publicity.
It went viral.
Because there were a lot of cameras going when she was doing it. And she was terrific. It makes you feel very good. And it makes you also feel good to see a business like that where it's safe and secure and the food's good and all of those things. Yeah. As opposed to the other alternative, which is no good.
Which is not good at all. All right, we come back. We're going to play something called 5 with 45. That's coming up after the break. Stick around.
We'll get back to our exclusive sit-down with President Trump from Mar-a-Lago, but let's talk about our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. We've seen what the inflation has done to the economy. We've seen the global markets. What the effect of that has done on your 401k. It's probably now a 201k. But the Birch Gold Group wants to help you take that first step in getting into gold, silver, and precious metals, and they have made it very easy for you to do. Just simply text the words Trump to 989898 and get that free information kit. There's no obligation for that, and gold historically has performed very well. So let's protect your retirement. Let's get into gold and contact our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. Just text the words Trump to 989898. Now, back to our exclusive sit-down with President Trump from Mar-a-Lago.
All right, welcome back. Let's play a game called 5 with 45. And I've got 5 quick questions. You just give me one-word answers if you could. All right, number 1, if you could use one club to play a round of golf, what club would that be?
It would be the 5-iron.
Okay. If you could play a round of golf with anyone dead or alive, who would that be?
My father.
There you go. Favorite artist or song that's currently on your playlist that you play at Mar-a-Lago or perhaps at the rally?
I have so many, but Lee Greenwood has done such an incredible job with our opening song. And I will tell you, we love Lee Greenwood.
We do love him. All right. When's the last time you drove a vehicle?
Well, I've been doing this stuff now for 6 years, so about 6 years ago.
There you go. Final question, who you got in the Super Bowl this year? Eagles or Chiefs?
Well, 2 really great teams. I mean, they really did it. I think I won't because politically I like both areas and they like me, and I better not get myself in trouble. But I will say you have 2 great teams, and maybe the 2 teams that most expected to be there. So it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a great game.
All right. On that note, thank you, Mr. President, for your time as always. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What a fantastic sit-down we had with President Trump there at Mar-a-Lago. And now we kind of know what direction he's going in his campaign. It is about law and order. It is about securing our border. And it is about ending the war in Ukraine. Hey, I want to thank our partners for today, the Birch Gold Group, for really stepping up and being a proud presenter of this broadcast. And if you have any questions about your IRA or perhaps getting into a gold-backed IRA, the Birch Gold Group can do just that. Simply text the words Trump to 989898 for your free information kit. Well, it's a beautiful day here in D.C., our nation's capital, the capital behind me, as we enter this 118th session of Congress. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.